Well, good evening, everyone. It is that time again. Coffee, talking, late night coffee talk, right? So this is going to be a fun one. You guys have sent in a lot of really, really good questions. Anyway, it's great that you are with us tonight. I want to thank you so much for being diligent enough to tune in week after week with typically a lot of really good, thought provoking questions. And you guys definitely keep me on my toes. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and start off with a little housekeeping, right? As you can tell, I'm woefully undercaffeinated. All right. That being said, again, if you're here for the first time, welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is that time once a week where I take a break from what I'm doing, working on Texas independence, come in here and fire up the cameras and answer your questions, talk about what's on your mind. I may bring some things to the table, things that I haven't written about or done on a podcast or whatever. News of the day, whatever it is, whatever's on my mind. And but primarily I'm here to answer your questions. And that is what we do. You drive the conversation. And like I said, we do this kind of week. I mean, it happens every week, right? And so we've done a lot of these, continue to do a lot of these, making, I would say, probably making us one of the most accessible advocacy organizations out there. Very few, I know of very few that do anything similar to this. So this is your chance to ask whatever questions you got, and I'll be here to answer. Now, the first question that you will not have to ask is how you ask questions on here. Well, if you're watching on YouTube, on either of the YouTube channels, you can go right into chat and type your question directly. If you're watching on the TNM's YouTube channel, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Additionally, super chats are active, right, as our channel memberships, and we'll be thanking all of our channel members here in just a little bit. But if you guys will notice this handy addition, look at this. Hang on, I can do this. There it is, right there. Some of you have asked, hey, I want to do something during Coffee Talk. I want to be able to contribute, but I don't want Google taking the 30%. Well, there's your answer. So if you're watching on your computer screen, you can shoot this QR code. If you're watching on your TV, you can shoot it as well. That takes you to the donation page that goes directly to the TNM. And no 30% skim for Google. So good news there. But anyway, be sure to ask your questions directly in the chat. Additionally, if you're watching on Facebook, be sure to comment on the video, and as always, like and share. If you're watching on X, be sure to comment in the chat on the video. If you at us, it doesn't show up over here in the software, so we only get to it later. Also, if you're watching on Rumble, thank you very much. You can drop your questions in the chat there, and I do believe Rumble has a donation feature over there as well. So if you want to give on Rumble, you can do that. Additionally, if none of those options satisfy you, then if you'll watch the crawler down here at the bottom, you will see an email address, coffeetalk@thetnm.org, and you can drop your questions there. And more of you do exactly that. A lot of you kind of get primed up in the pump. You prime the pump a little early, right? I will guarantee you that tomorrow I will start getting questions via email for next week's Coffee Talk, because that's how it works, right? So thank you guys, whether you're submitting your questions in the chat, various chats and comments, or whether you're emailing them in, we really do appreciate you reaching out to us. And I'm going to do this too. Look, tonight, there is a possibility, I'll talk about this every week, but if you hit one of the sort of fundamental basic questions about Texas becoming an independent nation, I am likely to guide you to this website right here, texitnow.org. right? That is the website where you can find answers to the most frequently asked questions that are asked about Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. And so, a lot of times I'll take some of those. If I haven't answered one of them in a while, I'll answer it on here. But generally speaking, if it's something that we get repeatedly, weekly, every other week, then I will guide you right here to this website, texitnow.org. It is really my prerogative, right? Because it really depends on how many questions we get in every week as to whether or not I can answer the Social Security question for the, I shudder to even think how many times I've answered that question. So, that being said, before we start ripping off into your questions, let's start right here. Thank you to Eric Riddle for your super chat of $100. He is also, if you'll notice that little symbol next to his name, that means he is a YouTube channel member as well. So, Eric, thank you so much for your support of our work here in the TNM. It means the world to us. It really does. And because of that, I will take your question first. Let's go here. There we go. Eric asks, given the Fed shutdown, is the possibility of real government shrinkage possible? And will it stand up to a shift back to the left? And will it stand up to a shift back to the left, undo any progress? I think I know what you mean. So, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really tore up like most of you that the federal government is effectively shut down. Now, is it shut down like all the way? No, it's not. But something is better than nothing, right? But I don't think we should accept crumbs from the master's table either. The federal government being shut down still creates a lot of difficulties, a lot of problems, because as long as we are tethered to that Leviathan in Washington, D.C., when it dives down to the murky depths, we go along with it. And so, it would be much better if Texas did not have to worry about whether or not the federal government was shut down or not, right? And you do that by becoming a self-governing independent nation. But to your point in your question, it's not real shrinkage, right? It's, Trump may target some departments that I think he said Democrat departments, which the last time I checked, they're just federal departments. But I think at the core of your question, and particularly the last part, is any of this really a solution, right? In other words, is anything that we're seeing all the way back to the flurry of executive orders after January the 20th, is it really, does it make a difference? And in the long run, the answer is no. In the short term, I'm going to go out on a limb and be prepared to accept whatever hate mail I get. In the short term, it doesn't make any progress at all, right? Many of the things that were promised have not been received, have not been delivered. No, I mean, and some of them seem superfluous, right? Audit of Fort Knox. But, substantive movements toward abolishing the income tax, nowhere to be seen. And if you'll recall, in the waning days of the campaign leading up to the November election, that was a big deal. People were talking about that because it was literally promised, and it evaporates. The release of the Epstein files, again, nowhere to be found. We've been hoaxed by the administration on that on more times than I can count. And while it's my interest in that, or our interest in that, is not just morbid curiosity. It's really about accountability. How deep did the ties that Epstein developed in his criminal enterprise, how many people were influenced by that are in sitting positions of government right now? I think that's the real story. So, we could go on and on about things promised and things not delivered. I was having a conversation with a representative the other day, and we were talking about the border. And even this particular representative was decrying the fact that we haven't seen real border reform. You know, they'll talk about the numbers being next to zero, but the reality on the ground is something very, very different. And Texas had an opportunity in this last legislative session to take concrete steps to secure our border, to basically, if the federal government continued to fail to do its duty, Texas would have the ability to stand up and take care of it. But yet again, this legislative session was really about squandered opportunities and a lot of paper mache. You know, I listen to some old school music, and I think when I look back at this legislative session, I think about that old crooner tune of "It's Only a Paper Moon," right? That's what it's sort of like. So to your point, Eric, there is no resistance to the pendulum swinging back the other way at the federal level. In fact, maybe what has happened here has been the clearing of some perceived hurdles and roadblocks. So if you wind up with an administration that's like Mamdani up there in New York, or an AOC or somebody like that, they're going to essentially use the actions that Trump took as a precedent to be able to publicly move fast in a hard lurch toward the left and socialism and communism. So, this is not doing us any good. Look, the reality is the solution, the only way out is out. If Texas doesn't want to have to worry about these things, then we have to not be a part of those things. So there we go. But Eric, thank you very much for your question and your super chat. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Just a note for those of you joining us, I just saw a jump in the numbers a bit. For those of you just joining us, be sure to get your questions in wherever you're watching this. Drop them in the chat or the comments. And of course, you can always email to the email address that you will see at the bottom of the screen here shortly, coffeetalk@vtnm.org. And let's do that. Let's go to the email, and let's start taking some of these email questions. By the way, wow. I can't believe I didn't lead off with this. Happy Gonzales Day. Happy Come and Take It Day, right? Today is the 190th anniversary of the Battle of Gonzales, right? That gave us the iconic Come and Take It flag, and really, I think, set the tone for what it ultimately means to be a Texan, right? And it is a spirit, an attitude that has, frankly, been lost among particularly many of the elected class, right? This come and take it. I mean, come and take it was a statement of defiance, right? Not a statement of capitulation. When our forebears raised that flag and said, "Come and take it," it was a dare to essentially say they would not back down from their rights. And, in this day and age, we have people being elected to represent us in the Texas legislature and in Texas government, to where come and take it is essentially an invitation to take our rights away, to take away our money, to take away everything. They're just like, just come and take it. Whoever wants it, right? It's how they behave. I don't know what in the world. Well, I do know, but I do know that spirit has not. It may have dwindled, but that spirit has not disappeared. There are people very likely watching this live stream tonight that still have that spirit of come and take it, that spirit of defiance that says, you have to draw a line at some point and say, you are not going to take my inherent, natural, God-given rights from me. Santa Anna sent the Mexican army, to essentially disarm the settlers, the colonists in Gonzales, to disarm them, to take away a cannon from them. And if you've ever seen a replica of that cannon, it's really tiny, right? I mean, I think some of you on here probably have shotguns that are that are that size, right, or larger. But the fact of the matter is, regardless of the size of the cannon, it was the principle that they were contending for. the principle that government did not have the right or the privilege of depriving people of the right to defend themselves and stripping them of their right to keep and bear arms. And that includes Canada. So there you go. But anyway, I hope you celebrated appropriately. I hope you posted the Come and Take It flag all over social media. Let's just remind these people from time to time what we're made of. Okay, let's get down to yes. Okay, I'm getting there. All right. Okay, I've answered this. Some of you guys have sent in emails like week after week about the Epic City situation with the Muslim community up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've answered that on probably the last 2 or 3, maybe 4 coffee talks. So just go back and watch that, and you will see what my answer is, because all of these questions are essentially variations on the same theme. All right. Okay, this is from Steve. He says, Daniel, the incompetence, arrogance, and bloat of Texas government makes me concerned over putting them in charge of the future of Texas. I don't trust them any more than I trust DC. I appreciate the sentiment. Not a question, but I will address it nonetheless. I hear that. I hear that honestly more than I would like to. I would love it if our Texas government here was less dysfunctional than it is. You have to remember, all governments that are made up of human beings are going to be dysfunctional to one degree or another. That is ultimately the source. That's just the way that it works. But, and I'll say this, Steve, because I think this is important. We have to also examine what enables the dysfunction, right? We don't serve correcting the dysfunction here in Texas by staying attached to the federal system. In fact, the federal system is ultimately what enables so much of this dysfunction. And you're seeing it play out in real time, right? Let me just pull a recent headline, like a today headline for you. So James Tallarico, state representative who is now running for U.S. Senate, right? He's running for the Democratic nomination to go tackle, I think he's running for Cornyn's seat to be the Democratic nominee. The guy raised, what was it, $6 million in 3 days or something like that. But what's interesting about that fundraising is the breakdown, right? So they love to tout how many different counties the money came from and how many different individuals. But the breakdown that's going to be interesting to see is how, well, they already partially broke this down, which was that part of those contributions came from all 50 states. Okay, so what does that tell you? It tells you we're in a situation where, much like Governor Greg Abbott or when Beto O'Rourke ran, or a bunch of these other candidates, where you've got a significant amount of money flowing into campaign coffers from outside of Texas, people that do not live here, that do not vote here, that money flowing in to their campaign coffers. And we know that money is a big determining factor in determining whether somebody wins an election or loses an election. And the bottom line is that it will, out of state money will, in this cycle yet again, play an outsized role in determining eventually who holds elected office here in Texas. Now, for well over a decade, the TNM has advocated for a ban on out-of-state campaign contributions, and weirdly enough, former Speaker, State Representative Dade Phelan, filed legislation this session that would have at least placed some restrictions on it. But the reality of it is that the only way that we will ever get control over that is to become a self-governing independent nation, to make the determination that we want to be self-governing independent, And therefore, any of those contributions that come from California or New York or Washington, D.C. and K Street, wherever it is, those are foreign campaign contributions, just like they came from Canada or Mexico or China or Russia or Germany or anybody else, right? Those are forbidden. So why aren't these campaign contributions from California and Illinois and all these places? They're foreign too. And some people say, well, I don't believe in any restrictions on campaign finance. Well, so be it. But this is not a campaign finance issue. This is a sovereignty issue. And that's the way that people need to understand this is a sovereignty issue. You wouldn't let those people vote in your elections. So why do you let them donate massive sums of money that ultimately help determine the outcome of that very same election? Why do you do that? You cannot make a legitimate case for why any state should allow out-of-state campaign contributions, because they are effectively foreign. That is, unless you are like some of these knuckleheads, like I've seen out there, that really that believe that Texas is just kind of a county in the United States. I mean, that's what they treat us like a province or a county or an administrative subdivision. It's not. We're either a sovereign state or we're not. So why would you put the sovereignty of Texas at risk by allowing that sort of thing? So, Steve, that's just one aspect of it, right? I mean, we're not even touching on political careers, right? The career ladder that goes from state to federal that has people like, I think it's no secret, Greg Abbott is secretly not so secretly mounting a presidential campaign for the next cycle. And so what does that do? That causes him to put on a good show for some things, right? To really start playing to a federal audience as opposed to serving the constituents here in Texas, because they ultimately want to make a name for themselves outside of Texas and thereby get that campaign finance and get that campaign money and then possibly votes if they run for president. So, that's another aspect of it. You don't have to worry about that sort of thing. The other thing that I talk a lot about in regard to this, Steve, is the dysfunction here in Texas is fueled by a lack of attention by the electorate here, because people are focused on that circus in Washington, D.C. I mean, it sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Humans only have a finite attention span. And if you don't believe that, try having a conversation with somebody for longer than 10 minutes, right? They have a finite attention span. When they are bombarded by social media, digital, 24-hour news cycle, and it's all federal, then they can get by with whatever they want to at the state level, and nobody hears the wiser. So then when they come out and tell you most conservative session ever, or, hey, we banned state income tax for the second time, or, they tell you that they cut your property taxes, they can go out there and send mailers and lie about it, and nobody is any the wiser, because they think, why would they lie to me? Right? So you take Texas out of the union, out of that whole federal system, that circus goes away. We don't need to pay attention to that anymore, and we can focus on what's happening right here in our backyard. And I know a lot of people say, well, we can do that right now. Yeah, no, you can't, right? It's human nature. They're going to go where the biggest, rowdiest show is. That's where their attention is going to be focused. And right now, and as long as I can remember, it's been in Washington, D.C., allowing these politicians in Austin to skate by and effectively lie about what they do and don't do. Most of it goes under the radar, unquestioned, where they don't even have to lie about it because somebody is focused on some nonsense happening in Washington, D.C. So, look, there are three concrete examples, Steve, of how being in the federal system, continue to be in the federal system, does not serve our interest in combating dysfunction right here in our own backyard. But I'll distill it all down. If you believe that the state government is dysfunctional and you believe the federal government is tyrannical, then why continue to suffer under the yoke of two separate layers of tyranny? Just get rid of one of them. Well, which one are you going to get rid of? Well, how about the one that we don't have a lot of say in, and that's the federal system, right? So why deal with two problems when you can only deal with one? especially when the one that we can deal with right here in our own backyard is fueled primarily by our relationship with that other, right? So anyway, Robert, thank you very much for your question. And here's what's funny. I'm not going to read this whole thing from Anna, but Anna, thank you for sending it. But it is oddly, essentially the same thing. Our current state government and legislators are a pure disappointment and obviously not for Texans. Austin is a cancer, her words. When TNM can figure out how to remove this cancer, then maybe we can be assured that possibly Texas can succeed to prosper. That's what we're doing. You know, we have to have all hands on deck, right? I mean, this is the thing. So I talked about this a few weeks ago. It might have even been last week, guys. You have to understand, all this stuff kind of runs together for me, right? But you know, one of the biggest challenges that we've got internally with our own people is the ones that see this as, well, this is just about Texas, like Anna here. I'm not saying that this is Anna, but I'm saying like what she said here. When TNM can figure out how to remove this, then maybe we can be assured that possibly Texas can succeed and prosper, right? So Anna has the order of operations right? This is why the Texas blueprint exists. This is why we talk about Texas being a process and not the referendum. Anna's got it. She understands. There are certain things we have to do in a certain order. And every time people want to jump the gun, we didn't get this done 6 minutes ago, so I'm not doing anything until that happens. Well, then it's never going to happen, right? It's never going to happen if people choose to sit on the sidelines until you go to the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's really what you're talking about. If I'm going to analogize it, maybe NFL analogies are not the best this week after their halftime show announcement. But my point, hopefully you take my point as intended, which is if you intend to sit it out until it's time for the big show, understand you don't get the big show. You don't get there. It's like saying, I'm not going to show up to team practice. I'm not going to play a single game until we get to the playoffs, to the championship game. Well, how's it going to work, right? If all the players feel that way, then how's that going to work? Well, you're never going to make it to the championship. Look, you got to do the work to get what you want. I mean, I can't put it any plainer than that. And if you sit it out, refuse to do the work, prioritize other things, then you've already chosen. You don't really want it to happen. So bottom line, Anna, you got the order right. So, as we're doing this right now, literally, Nate Smith, Executive Vice President, Daphne Irwin, Chief of Staff, are in New Braunfels training volunteers. They're holding a workshop to train volunteers to help do this very thing, to help go and work the campaign of their choice that will help us advance the cause of Texas independence, to put people out there. And if you don't know about that, go back and watch the podcast, the Texas News podcast. It's called, the thumbnail on it says Texan Arise. Tell you all about why that is super important. But, it's like when TNM can figure out how to remove it, well, we already know how to do it, right? We just need the tools to be able to do it. And we need the team to work together to help do it. And so, Anna, I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you, and I'm counting on Steve, who asked the previous question. If we want to make this happen, then we have to make it happen. We is in all of us. We have to make it happen. If you're hoping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in leadership by themselves can make it happen, then that's just not realistic, right? So looking forward to seeing those volunteer forms fly in, folks. Okay. Rick asks, he says, are y'all still meeting in Decatur, Texas tonight? Been a long supporter, just haven't made it to any meetings and would like to attend. All right, hang on. I know how to solve this one. If any of you have questions in a very similar vein to that one, let me go over here, share the screen. If you go to tnm.me, hang on, there it is. I should reorder this. It's like I'm looking at it from the wrong way. It's very, very. There we go. Much better. See that looks so much better to me. But look, if you have any questions about what events are going on or where they're going on, all you got to do is go to tnm.me, right? And here's the website, and to the events link. Oh, look at that guy. He should get a different suit. But there you go. There's the list of all the events. When organizers and county leadership, or we put events into the system, they all go here. And you can go there. Oh, look, late night coffee talkers. Hey, that's us. We're literally doing that right now. But you'll see it. There's all kinds of things. There's an intro to Texit presentation going on in Angelina County on the 9th. Info tables. I mean, man, we got all kind of stuff shaking, right? I mean, that calendar is full, and it's going to get more full because we brought on 7 new county organizers in 7 new counties. So, but that is the place. That's where you're going to go and get your information about what events are going on. Oh, that looks terrible. There we go. I'm back. All right. So anyway, Rick, thank you for that. I don't know if there was anything in Decatur tonight. I did not look at the calendar, but that's where you can go find that information. And if there's not, right, Decatur is what, Wise County. I would encourage you to go to this website right here. It is local.tnm.me, where it invites you to connect with your county. Right. So you can go here and find Wise County. Wise County looks like it's organizing, which means that it does not have a county organizer there yet, which means it could be you. So if you go to this website, you can reach out and, oh, no wonder that thing was so tiny. Okay, there we go. But you could go there and reach out and let our organizational development team know that you would like to help organize the county. Right. So that would be a good opportunity right there. If there are no meetings in Wise County, which is where I think Decatur is, then you could be the person to help make that happen. All right. Let's see what we got over here. I've been leaning kind of heavy on the email. Let's go to the chat. Davin says, have y'all seen the Texit coin out of McKinney? I know about it. I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that it is not us. So I've been asked more times than I can count, is that ours? And the answer is no, it is not. So, and then before we get the follow-up, I've already answered this question before about Texit being copyrighted or trademarked, and it's not trademarkable. It's not copyrightable. It is a portmanteau that existed, although first use can be attributed to us over here. But the fact of the matter is because it is such a common thing, it's not there. And even if it were, if somebody tries to go do it, we'll contest it because we've got documented first use of the term and broad use of the term. So there's that. All right. Hey, big thank you to Ron Raffoon. Ron, as always, man, he came in here and he gifted 10 TNM channel memberships right here on YouTube to some of you. Some of you just received a gift channel membership from Ron Raffoon, so be sure to drop into the comments and give him a big thank you. Thank you so much for that, Ron. It is much appreciated. Oh man, this is going to be a good question. All right, let me go to email. Okay. All right. Man, we're at the midway point. Oh yeah, I forgot. Since we are at the midway point, if you were just now joining us, thank you. If you want to get your question in, it's not too late. You can email it to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. It'll be down here at the bottom. Or if you're watching on YouTube, drop your question in the chat. If you're watching on X, be sure to drop a question in the chat there. Same thing for Rumble. If you're watching on Facebook, drop it as a comment on the video, and we'll get it squared away. Okay, so this is from Michael. Michael says Glenn Beck had Alberta's freedom movement on the air today. Think we'd have a chance of getting coverage on his show? Do I think? Okay, so there's a long and a long history that goes all the way back to 2009. I think maybe 8, or even earlier. Like I said, all this stuff runs together. So where Glenn Beck is concerned, back when he was on CNN Headline News, right? So Beck oddly dunked on us early, and then wound up pulling up stakes and moving to Texas, moved his studios here, did all kinds of things. And where Glenn is concerned, he's got a weird history when it comes to the Texas independence situation, right? He has talked about us. I think we even have clips about him on our YouTube channel where he talks about us. But when Chad Prather was over there with his show at the Blaze, Chad had us on. But Glenn has not been really quick. And look, you guys have pressured. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You guys have pressured him in the past, and it was just a flat refusal. Even when I was there interviewing with Chad and I saw him in the hall and passed by, I mean, he spun and turned and took off. He did not want to have a conversation with me. So, take that as you will. Maybe it was everything's just coincidental, and maybe the invitation got lost in the mail, and maybe maybe I had to, maybe was throwing off odd vibes or something that day when I was. I mean, I don't know, but we're still open, right? If you want to see us on any interview, I mean, you guys have gotten us on Tim Pool twice, just by virtue of the fact that you go and you let these people know that they need to talk. Rogan would be another one that people say we need to be on all the time, and he's right here in Austin. So whether it's Beck or Joe Rogan, I mean, anybody, right? Tell them that you would like them to have us on their show, and we'll do it. We rarely turn down media interviews. I mean, there are some. We have some media outlets that are on the proscribed list, but typically that is because they either printed or broadcast something that was absolutely false or heavily biased and refused to issue corrections or apologies. And there's only a handful of outlets like that, but they do exist, and we do not interview with them. So thank you for that question, Michael. I think Glenn should have us on. I mean, look, it's, what are we, 2025? So that's been, well, I guess, I don't know. Kara can let me know. Was that 2007, 8, or 9? I don't remember. But anyway, I mean, it's been a hot minute. It's been enough time, right? All right. Let's see what we got here. All right, let's get to this. This is a fun one. I love this one. So, good evening, Mr. Miller. I've heard you say a lot at the start of the late night coffee talk sessions that this is when you take a break from working for Texas. So what do you do daily / all the time working for Texas? That's a really interesting question. And, no one's really asked that before. So I will tell you that it varies on the day. But if I showed you my calendar, you would see lots of blocks, right? Things blocked out. So let's kind of set the stage here, and I will try to take you through a typical day. I mean, there is no typical day. That's a lie. Okay. But let's just set the stage. So my working hours are typically, depending on what's going on, um, 16 to 18 hours a day. That's kind of the normal. And that's how it rolls, right? So those are actual working hours that I have allocated. Now, if we're jumped off, like if things get really hectic, I will average, for periods of time, I will average about 2 to 4 hours of sleep a night. Okay, so all the rest of that is either work. It's all that time is work, sleep, 30-minute meal sometimes, which could be about once a day. So that just kind of sets the stage for you. All right. So typical day in the week. So throughout and there isn't, like I said, there is no typical day, but I will have meetings with various department heads in the organization. So various sections of the organization have pre-slotted weekly stand-ups. So I have to go and do my meetings and essentially get a brief on what's going on. We strategize. I have to make phone calls. I have to call and remind people that we actually have to pay for things like server bills and such as that. I will do podcast production, which is the interviews. I frequently will schedule meetings with other leaders of independence movements. Within that, you will have media interviews or interviews with academics. I have to spend a good amount of time writing and drafting policy, sometimes articles for the Texian Partisan. I have to do technical work because I wind up, I'm sort of the de facto CTO of the organization too. And so I have to run the dev team. I will try, if there's travel involved, that means that I drive, come back, I speak. I frequently talk to legislators, whether they're pre-scheduled or not. Sometimes they don't get on the calendar. A lot of conversations are being had. I guess if I'm distilling it down, I'm having to talk to a lot of people. But when you're in the role that I'm in, that's what it boils down to. It is I miss the days where it was just tactics for me, like going out and being like a county coordinator. I mean, you have to remember, when I started out pre-T&M, I started out as a volunteer at a local level, right? And then became a county leader. And that's how the progression went. So I've done every job, and I'll be honest, so like I say, there is no typical day. I do have scheduled things that have to be done. And those scheduled things, like I said, could be meetings, phone calls, etc. But one of the other things is I have to be a pickup player too, because anything that doesn't get done that still must be done typically will land on my desk for me to do it. And that could be anything from graphic design to writing articles, producing and editing videos. It could be helping Kara with shipping. It could be frontline technical support for people that call in or send emails in. Some of you have sent in support tickets that got answered by me because I needed to do it, right? Because I needed to pick up. So aside from all the duties of spokesperson, representation, strategic planning and execution, to policy analysis and creation, fundraising, membership recruitment, volunteer vetting. That's the other thing. When you guys volunteer for county leadership, all of that process that you go through, it ultimately ends up at my desk, and I have to go through it. I have to watch your interviews and read all the reports. So, I feel less like a revolutionary and more like a not a bureaucrat. That's not the word I'm looking for, but I don't remember when I first crossed the line in the sand thinking that there would be this much administrative stuff that I would have to do, but I have to do it nonetheless. Occasionally that means board meetings, generating and reading and analyzing reports. I mean, it's a lot, and so you have to remember, even with all of that, Karen and I still have a business because we don't get paid by the T&M, so we still have a business, which means for my business, I still have to deal with clients. I still have to go take care of the consulting that I do there. I have to get up to my elbows and full stack development. So this is why my days are long. This is why it's on average 16 to 18 hours at a minimum, and then in the peak times it can be 20 anywhere from 20 to 22 hours is what my days look like. And they can start very early. If there's a radio interview, they'll typically want to do morning drive time hits, which means I got to be up at depending on what time they want to do the hit, I got to be up at 4:30 because I require 90 minutes before my first interaction in where I've got to talk or be interviewed. So I mean, it's a lot. If so like to your point about what do you like today, if you wanted to take today. Literally what I was in there doing was reviewing technical support logs right before this to help the development team figure out why our server on T&M Social occasionally goes down. And having back and forth then, that's literally what I was doing right before we hopped on here tonight. So look, it just whatever it takes, right? That's the mindset I've always had is what is it going to take? If it takes sweeping floors, I sweep floors. If it takes, charging the gates of hell with a squirt pistol, I want at least a super soaker. I mean, that's just what you got to do. But anyway, thanks for asking that question. Nobody has ever really asked me that, and I like new ones. So thank you for that. Okay, I happened to click over and saw the chat, and Lori Phillips, shame on you for even trying to manifest me being on The View. I guess it would be fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I could be civil. All right. This question is via email. It is from James. He says, are we near the inflection point where Main Street Republican voters in Texas are starting to realize that Texit is the only viable path forward versus every 4 years the country swings wildly BTW right and left priorities? Okay. I get the gist of it, James, and thank you very much for your question. Are we near the inflection point? I think we've been beyond the inflection point for quite some time. I believe, and I've said this for several years now. If this issue goes to a vote, when it goes to a vote, it doesn't win by a little, it wins by a lot. I think we've got the poll numbers to show that, whether you believe the best case scenario, sort of the most fair poll numbers, or those artificially suppressed poll numbers that we saw from like Redfield Strategies and places like that. Anyway, we're on a trajectory to victory. So I think we're past that, but I think it has been to a certain extent artificially constrained in the sense that we've got electoral issues here in Texas. Under any other circumstance, if our movement were transplanted to any other country in the world, we would have already had the referendum. I mean, it would have happened because the amount of support exceeds what is ultimately and normally required to have a referendum on this issue. And we know this because we've talked to the international experts on this. Something else I have to do during the day. Not every day, but some days. But we know this to be a fact, right? Even the least favorable polls, the most artificially skewed against us polls, still show us polling higher than both Brexit and Scottish independence before there was ever announced that there was going to be a referendum, right? So we're well beyond what I would term the inflection point. But it is that artificial suppression of the sort of the natural outcropping of that inflection point. We are being held, in my opinion, against our will. And they'll say, well, how can you say that? Well, I can say it because if we were not being held against, well, I can say that we're being held against our will because the opposition wants desperately to suppress the will of the people by not allowing the referendum. It's the same thing that we have said for many, many years, which is simply this. If it is as they say, and no one believes in this, then put it to a vote and let's find out. The fear that they have is that the will of the people will be heard, right? They will hear in a clear voice what the will of the people is, and ultimately they will be put into a position where they will have a binary choice of respect the will of the people or publicly ignore the will of the people. And that's not where they want to be. They want to be able to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be able to ridicule people like us and say that no one believes this. They say, no one believes in this. It'll fail. I mean, I've heard that crap before. Former Land Commissioner Jerry Patterson, loved the guy to death. Super nice guy. Get along great. He believes that we should have a vote on this because he believes it'll go down in flames. Tony Ortiz, the current revolt, has essentially said the same thing. He's like, yeah, let's have a vote because I think it'll fail. I think they're both wrong, right? But at least they can acknowledge that they want to have a vote, although they predict the outcome will be different than what we believe the outcome will be, and we have hard data to back up what we think it is. I can tell you that I think the opposition believes, like we do, that if it goes to a vote, it wins, and therefore they don't want it to. It's why they fight so hard against it. They do not want your voice to be heard on the question, should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? Look, it harms no one if it goes on the ballot. It harms no one, right? But what it does do is it creates a scenario where if indeed what we say is fact, if there are enough people in Texas that are willing to say yes on this issue, then it puts them in a position where they have to do something about it. Look, if it goes on there and it loses, then it's lost. What has the opposition lost? They get to do a victory lap. They get to stick their middle finger at us, go, ha ha, told you so. You know what? So what? That they get the opportunity to do that, but they won't. And if they won't take the opportunity to put the nail in the coffin of this issue for a generation, then what that tells you is when that thing goes on the ballot, they expect to lose. It's just the reality of it. So they artificially constrain that inflection point, pulling every tool out of their tool bag legislatively to keep this from going on a ballot. And we've seen it. Look, if you want to understand what's happening in the legislature on the referendum issue, just look at what the Republican Party of Texas and operatives in there did to keep it off of a Republican primary ballot. I mean, just think about all the dirty, nasty, ridiculous, unlawful ways that they have fought to suppress this issue just within the party for a non-binding referendum. Now, you take that and you X that times 10 or X that times 100, and that's what we're having to fight in the Texas legislature. So that's just the reality of it. So we're there. We have a path forward. The problem is that we've got to get far more people doing far more of the same thing. I can't say it any other way than what I said earlier. But James, thank you very much for that. Ooh, I am almost out of time. All right. All right, we got one more super chat here. Chris Powell, 99.99. Thank you, sir. He says, we must and have to fight evil, not waver and not quit ever. Vive la revolution, October the 2nd. Let's finish the fight and not waver. I am with you and appreciate the sentiment and the super chat. Look, you can't quit. Look, if people want a reason to quit, like if you're out there right now and you're a TNMer and you're looking for a reason to quit, I'll call me. Call me. I'll give you 100 reasons to quit. And if you stay after that, then you're stuck in for the long haul, right? That's me. I mean, that's literally it. I mean, I could give you 100 different reasons why this is absolutely, just too tough for most people. But the question is, are you made of the same stuff as those people that rode out to meet the Mexican army, the Mexican detachment with a come and take it flag, right? Are you a Texican or are you a Texicant, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And if you want what you say you want, then you have to do the things necessary to make it happen. The reality's in your hands. At the risk of repeating myself week after week, Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution says all political power is inherent in the people. You are one of the people. So that means the power is in your hands. And if you decide to decline to utilize that power, then where's the change? Because the opposition is not refusing to use their power to keep you shackled down, right? They're willing to use their power to beat you over the head with it like a baseball bat. So when are you going to use your power? When are you going to gather together with the rest of us and let us exercise our power collectively and win our independence? That's the real choice. I look at Line in the Sand Day, right, back in March the 5th. I look at this Battle of Gonzales, and you have to remember there is a podcast episode for the Texas News Podcast where I break down a historic letter that was written. Wait a minute, did I actually do that one or did I do another one? I think I did Travis's letters. I'll have to check, but if it's not there, let me know. But it's to me one of the most famous and important letters that was written from the Texas Revolution, and it was written by the Committee of Safety from Liberty, the municipality of Liberty, Texas, and it was written right after the Battle of Gonzales, and it was essentially a letter to the convention and an open letter to Texans about what the attitude should be. Right. I will tell you, that is the letter. Yeah, I did do a podcast on that. That is probably the letter that had some of the biggest impact on me moving forward. And now that we're almost done with October the 2nd, the 190th anniversary, I think you should all go back and read that letter because I know it's on the Texian Partisan. I think we've republished it in its entirety. I think it's in the Texit book, right? I think I did a podcast on it. Either way, go find that letter. And you'll understand. That is how you begin to really conceptualize where your attitude and your mindset has to be in relation to the issue of Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. Anyway, Chris, thank you very much for that. Okay. Well, let's get down to it. We are officially out of time, my friends. And it was a good one. I enjoyed it. A reminder, if you would like to make a contribution straight to the TNM where Google doesn't take their 30% cut, that QR code should be on your screen right there. Be sure to pop that bad boy. If not, you can go to donate.tnm.me, right? And that'll take you right to the donation page and make it happen. Real quick, I want to take a moment and thank our channel members, our YouTube channel members, right? These guys are the ones who are helping make videos like this possible and some of the other content that we're producing. Not only are their names right up there on the screen, but they are scrolling down there at the bottom. And I want to thank you all so very much for becoming YouTube channel members. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me just kind of tell you real quick how that happens. Right? Hang on. There we go. When you go to our YouTube channel, right, you be sure you're subscribed and you hit that little deal and say you want all notifications. But the other thing that you'll see is right here Where the arrow is, it says see perks. That's because I'm a channel member, right? But if you're not, it'll give you a button to join, and you can become a channel member, just like so many of these, like these people that are scrolling. Their names are scrolling at the bottom of the page right now. So be sure to do that. Again, look, if you had a very basic question, right, sort of text it 101, something that is really kind of making your brain itch, right? What happens to my Social Security? What's going to happen to the military bases? What are we going to do for currency? Those types of questions. Head over to textitnow.org and be sure to search for your question. That is the largest collection of text it question and answers on the internet. All right. Additionally, look, if you are not on TNM Social, be sure you do that, right? What is TNM Social, you ask? It is the official social network of the Texas Nationalist movement, newly relaunched, very, very useful, and dedicated exclusively to people like you, people that believe that Texas should be a self-governing independent nation. It is the primary organizing tool. And the biggest benefit of TNM Social is that you don't have to, we don't have to worry about big tech censoring us or keeping us from communicating with you or you from each other, right? So head over to tnm.social right now, or you can go right to the Apple App Store or Google Play and download the app. If you want the links directly to that, you can head to tnm.me/app and get the app today. And if you're not already signed up on it, you can sign up right there in the app. One or two more things. Hey, make sure you get your official TNM merchandise and Texit merchandise over at the Texian store. Proceeds from the Texian store go to support the mission of the Texas Nationalist movement. Head to texianstore.com and get your apparel and drinkware and hats and all that other stuff today. Additionally, getting your news right. You got to support independent media outlets, including the official news of the Texas Nationalist movement. You can get that right at Texian Partisan. Head over to texianpartisan.com and read up. I mean, we have all kinds of cool stuff, not just news, but analysis and organizational news and Texas news and lots of cool things. Opinions, editorials, analysis, it's all there. Very, very cool stuff. All right, friends, that is a wrap for this week's edition of Late Night Coffee Talk. I want to wish everyone a very happy Gonzales Day. Come and take it, right? And just hopefully the answers tonight struck a chord with you. I really did appreciate the questions tonight. They were really, really good ones. And I'm very much looking forward to next week. And so with that, I will leave you with the words that I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, y'all.